Welcome to Twin Talk Politics.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Twin Talk Politics, where today on this absolutely burning Thursday afternoon, we are so lucky to be joined by MP Marc Dalton, who is a Member of Parliament for here, the beautiful Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge. We have so many cool things to talk to him about today, but first, how are you doing, MP Dalton?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, great. We're also doing really good.
I was going to say Jason or Jerry, but that's going to be a question, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. As you already know, the first question in tradition with our podcast is really for you to guess who is Jason and who is Jerry. And if you want to give it a go, if you're feeling really confident about yourself, who do you think is born first, Jason or Jerry? That's a tough question. Yeah.
Well, I'll say Jason was born first.
Oh, wow. That's
because the A comes before the E.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
And I would say you're Jason and you're Jerry.
No, unfortunately that's wrong.
I was looking at the direction of your mic.
I'm slightly, I look slightly a little bit better.
So you're Jason and you're Jerry.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, well there you go. Okay, well that would be good.
Yeah. Great. Now that you know how to tell us apart, let's just jump straight into the interview. So the first question we have for you today is pretty loose, pretty relaxed. We're just wondering if you could please tell us a little bit more about yourself, some of your passions outside of politics, and how you sort of got involved and interested in politics in the first place.
Good question. Yeah. Good questions. So I think I first got interested in politics when I was in high school. I ran for student council for my first political speech was running for treasurer in Quebec, in a place called Chibougamau, Quebec. And so I've always kind of been interested in politics. Dad was in the military, and so I've lived all over Canada. I was born in Europe. And so I've always been interested in the world, in affairs, and also in leadership. So whether it was Scouts or whatever it was, and also I'm the oldest of 6 children.
Wow! So
it's kind of take a leadership role there. So a bossy role. My brothers and sister would have said at that time, but So interests. I grew up in little bases all across, especially up north, North Vancouver Island by Cape Scott, Port Hardy, Northern Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, different places like that. And so we were always very close to nature. And so we enjoyed hiking, fishing, getting out in nature, and I still do. I have some of my family members and I are going to be going on the Juan Fuca Trail.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So I haven't been doing a lot of hiking, but that will be something that I'll be doing and looking forward to that. And but that is something I really do enjoy, is getting in nature, but also seeing the world. Yeah. There's a lot to learn out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Have fun on the Juan Fuca Trail. I heard it's a really great trail. So as you know, our podcast is really created by the youth and really for the youth. And so following this kind of idea, our second question is kind of split into 2 parts. So first, we are just wondering what you think are the biggest concerns for youth in Canada as a whole. And then secondly, what do you think are the most paramount issues for youth in your own constituency?
Well, I was a teacher for many years, and I was taught for about 15 years. Then I was in provincial politics as an MLA, and then I lost an election. Those things, that happens too. Yeah. And I went back to teaching here locally. And so I had taught high school, then elementary school, then I went back to teaching high school, and there was actually a gap of 16 years. Wow. So there's... The world has changed. The world is changing. I mean, youth, still got 2 arms, 2 legs, and enjoy being with. But I would say there's so many things, and I think keeping abreast is with technology. Technology, it's always been not just an issue, but it's both positive, it's negative. But there's things that are I would say that in the schools. Years ago, cell phones were not there. Okay, well, they might have been there, but you didn't have that. You didn't have that same contact with family constantly, and so there was a variety of things. So as far as the big issues, just making it. Well, I mean, you're still in homes, okay, so that's one thing. But when you get out into university training, I think there's a lot of anxiety. a lot of anxiety of how am I going to do it? You know, how am I going to make ends meet and have a career? And so that's an important issue, not just for youth, but for the population in general. People are feeling the pressure, the financial pressure, and you know, you can have a good education and still you know, and make a good salary, but it's still a challenge.
Sure.
So that's a big thing. I think right now the bread and butter issues are a big deal, especially with inflation.
Yeah.
That really cuts into people's purchasing power, and so on paper you're doing well, but what you actually bring as far as income, that's another matter. So that's so those are a thing. But as far as youth in general, I mean, I would say, you know, there's always, you know, where am I in the world? You know, what direction? So those are questions that people, you know, you've had, you know, since time began.
Yeah.
You know, so it's nothing, you know, the next steps, especially as you go through, you know, finish high school. And what direction do I go? What do I do? And taking those steps. And so, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And specifically on the idea of like affordability and like having a lot of anxiety, especially going forward because of major inflation rates, what do you think Canada should adopt to really address and tackle that problem?
Well, I think that we should adopt something nationally as we should be doing individually. And that starts off with living within your means. So that takes discipline. There's a lot of demands for doing more and more and more, but you have to live within your means, because if you don't live within your means, then as a family, you go into debt. And then it starts to spiral, and you actually, it becomes extremely difficult. And that's what we're facing also as a nation, is by actually having doubled our national debt in the past few years. It has, for one thing, what it's done is that it has led to inflation, okay? And I know that's coming down, but still the effects of inflation in the past number of years are still with us.
Prevalent, yeah.
And so that's a big issue. So as far as living within your means individually, and as far as a nation, and that would be a change that we would do, probably not overnight. As far as I am a Conservative member of Parliament, and we just feel that if you want, yes, we want to provide services, but those services need to be based upon what you can afford, and take those steps. And it's kind of like the golden goose with the laying the eggs and not eating the egg, or not eating the. Well, you can eat the eggs, but don't eat the goose. And we're eating the goose, and that which produces the eggs.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really strong analogy. It's just for like people to imagine that we're kind of doing things the opposite way, and we really just gotta start with like the smaller issues first. For sure. Yeah. On that trail of thought, as we keep saying, one of the issues that are on the minds of so many Canadians right now, and for past couple of years, has been affordability. Young people losing $750 per month just living in cities alone across the country, and 40,000 youth experiencing homelessness across the nation this year. We know that you've been a huge advocate for like improving the quality of life for Canadians by drastically reducing the cost of living, by doing things just cutting down on carbon tax, the federal gas tax, the GST tax, and even proposing to have a tax pause over the summer to really bring some relief to Canadians all over the country. So our question to you is, we were just wondering if you could please explain the current state of affordability in Canada, and how sort of these initiatives and strategies that you've really advocated for might help alleviate the burden that so many Canadians across the country has been really facing.
Well, one thing, it's not how much you make. It's how much you keep, how much you actually get. So people say, oh, I make $100,000, but at the end of the day, you're making $45,000. So, and we're taxed a lot heavier than, say, down in the United States. And that has actually led to a drain, a lot of people moving down there. And actually, in British Columbia, we are taxed a lot heavier than Alberta. And so in the past year, we've actually lost over 80,000 British Columbians moving to Alberta because of the how difficult it is. I have a son. He is a lawyer, and he lived in the Okanagan, practiced there, and then moved to Edmonton. Sold his place, townhouse here, and then bought a really nice place in Alberta, almost new, and they have 2 children. But he's told me he'd be interested in moving back even to the Lower Mainland. But he's saying, even with his salaries, he says it is so expensive here. So expensive for people that are making a very good income, let alone those have jobs that don't pay near as much. So it's putting a lot of pressure on people. I talked to, when I was in the North Shore with Pierre Poilievre not that long ago. We visited C-SPAN terminals. And I talked to different workers, including one fellow, and he said, with the increase of the mortgage rates, he says he's having to work, almost 15, most of the day, every day. He told me he can't give his body a rest in order to pay for his mortgage, and his wife is working. And he says he just has a modest home, but it's just so expensive, and people are finding it hard. They're having to reduce their, just what they can even what they eat. Even providing for their children, clothes, sports, things like that. So those are things. Taxation is a big issue. So we, as far as the Conservative Party, want to reduce the amount of taxes and burden upon Canadians.
For sure.
Young people, older people, and you know what happens when people are actually able to keep more of their income? What does it do? Like businesses, if they're able to have more of their income, then what it allows for expansion. It allows them for hiring. It allows higher wages right there. But if by taxing because the government has all these programs, it's got to be paid for, then it makes it really tough on everybody. So one thing. And that's where the carbon tax comes in also. We believe that, for one thing, there's been no change as far as with the carbon tax. It doesn't improve the climate. It is actually a tax plan. And we're actually ranked one of the lowest as far as climate initiatives in the world. I think number 63 of 65 as far as. So it's very low. And so that's something we would scrap. With that, and look at other initiatives as far as technology, because there's a lot of things you can do with technology.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Moving a little bit away from the whole concept of affordability, we know another issue that's very prevalent on the minds of a lot of young Canadians right now is a drug and opioid crisis that plagues a lot of communities across Canada. And sadly, BC is one of the laggards within that regard. So we're very interested in your motion 88 that really proposes a federal framework to help address the opioid crisis, whether it be through effective addiction recovery treatments, or also includes initiatives like specific targeted strategies for the Indigenous populace or youth at risk. So we just also know you're very heavily against the decriminalization initiatives of drugs. So our question for you is, we were wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the root causes of the drug epidemic and how initiatives like increased treatment and straight out banning of these drugs can really solve this crisis.
Well, if you travel around the world, you don't see the problems that you see here in my community and across Canada, especially here in BC. I mean, I just walk outside the back door, and half the time, I'm going to see somebody that is strung out on drugs. And I mean, I've traveled quite a bit. And I would say that if I was to add all the population of all these cities in the tens of millions outside, compared to BC, it's just like, what's going on? We're doing something wrong. And so I think doubling down on what we have that's not working, we need to go a different direction. So that was what my motion was, and that was, I think, maybe 3 years ago that I put that one forward. And the party has taken a strong stand on recovery from addictions, and we do not support the decriminalization of hard drugs. I know that the NDP government had, along with Bonnie Henry, she had said that, well, we need to be putting it even in public spaces, in drugstore or in grocery stores and all that. Like, what type of insanity is that? And so it's not working. And we also believe in just toughening our criminal justice system, because it's so much of the crime is actually drug related, and so car thefts and other things, quite often because they have to pay for their addictions. Now we are making it easier for them because we're providing so much free drugs that it's actually getting into the hands of in the black market and reducing the cost, which makes it easier for young people to access this. So it is not what we're doing is not working. We do not support the decriminalization of hard drugs, and also safe supply is not safe. Like we think, oh, well, it's safe supply. That's wrong terminology. It is not safe. When last year we had 2,500 people that died, and I know different in BC alone.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm aware of, I think, maybe I know a number of people personally that have died from addictions, and families that have lost their children or a loved one, and so this is catastrophic, and there needs to be a serious change, and quickly.
Yeah. Wow, that was really informative. So thank you for that. Yeah, that was really, really powerful. Right. Another issue that we know that you're very interested in and very passionate about is the military. As you said earlier in the interview, you were actually born on a military base, which is so fascinating for me and Jerry. Your father served, and soon after you graduated, you also served in the Canadian Armed Forces. So first and foremost, we'd like to thank you for your service. But we know currently the Canadian Armed Forces are currently facing some challenges, with only 58% of personnel ready to respond if called upon, and 46% of their equipment deemed as unserviceable. So we're wondering what your thoughts are on the current state of the military, especially geared towards the youth and the younger population who are going into the military, and what initiatives do you think can really mitigate and address these issues?
Well, it's interesting that the Liberal government, supported by NDP, has they said, we're going to increase the military expenditures, but in 2 years, when they're not, it's very questionable whether they're going to be in government. So they have allowed it to rot. Our Navy, Air Force, and Army. It's our equipment, personnel, and it's not from a lack of people applying. There's actually tens of thousands of people that are applying, but they are very very selective, and it's become more. They're more interested in what I would call woke policies, and rather than beef up our military. And it's a shame. It's a shame. We're not meeting up our commitments to NATO, to United States. And I think for a young person to join the military is a great experience. I know that it was a tremendous experience for me, and actually my brothers and sisters also were in different times, and so I have a lot of respect for our military. The Conservatives will, that is one thing that we'll be putting more funds and investment is into our military. We're living in a dangerous world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you can't say, all of a sudden a war is upon us, and we say, we better get ready. Well, it's too late. I mean, there's so much training and everything that is involved. We need to be prepared. So the number one priority of a federal government needs to be national security and also public safety. So those are two things, and it's been by the current government. It's totally being pushed aside on other policies. So we are not defending our frontiers and our commitments. And the allies are not happy at all with what we're doing. So that's one thing. And then on the issue of public safety, we just do believe that criminal justice, that there needs to be consequences. In 2022, there were, I think, 259 people that were murdered, and they were almost one third of all murders in Canada were people that were actually on bail, by people that were on bail, which means they should have been behind bars still. Yeah. They're being released because it's they're not taking public safety seriously. So we believe in jail for repeat violent offenders, specific, and for murderers much more so. Yeah. So we've seen a dramatic increase in violent crime, in extortion, in all types of criminality over the past number of years, and that they put the focus on we're serious about public safety by looking at their gun control, but really they are focusing on people with hunters and sports shooters that are already licensed and that are not that are not a public menace at all, and not focusing upon the gangs and the illegal smuggling of firearms.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Like really just talking about the importance of the military and the importance of like a functioning public safety system and a criminal justice system. So thank you for that. For the next part of our interview, we're going to sort of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about youth as a whole. So in recent years in Canada, there's sadly been a decline in youth engagement in terms of youth going to the polls and voting, or in terms of youth just like standing up and stating their opinions or what issues they really want solved. So our question for you comes in two parts. So firstly, we were wondering, according to you, in what aspects can the youth become really more engaged in the political sector and the political sphere? And secondly, how can we as a youth help to address the previous talked about issues that Canada currently faces?
Well, I think what you're doing is great.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I don't know if your class is doing this, just a project that you're doing, but I think that's the sort of thing. Being engaged, learning, reading about the world. I think I think current events is important. When I was in high school, I taught social studies and French and languages. So I think that there's a real value in right in the classroom of teaching those things. But I do think that it's important even in the classroom to make sure that there is room, that it's not just a agenda coming from educational system, but you have to believe what we believe. You present it. I think it's important to see different sides of things. I think it's really important because we don't want a bunch of automatons or people that are ideologues. We want people that are that really are learning to tackle with issues. And so I think it's a responsibility of teachers to look at both sides. For example, one of the units I taught in grade 8s last time was on different religions. And so I would try to present as best as possible and evaluate allow the students to study different faiths, but at the same time would want it so that no matter what faith that you practice, whether it be Hindu or Muslim or Christian, that that the parents, and I say you can talk to your parents, that they would feel that their faith is being properly represented. And so I think it's really important to have that freedom of thoughts and exploring and studying, and rather than just being told, we need to be, I think, learning how to think for ourselves is really important rather than just being told. So
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea, just like ensuring that we're not being fed one ideology, but really presenting ideas as what they really are and allowing the individual to go through and actually have a thought process of their own. Yeah. I think that's really, really cool.
Well, you're doing that in some ways. I think you're interviewing people from different political parties. So I think that's great. I think that your viewers, they'll have an opportunity to hear from people from different political perspectives. That's
good. Definitely.
That's one of our goals.
So following along the idea of how the youth can be more engaged in politics, what are your opinions regarding like the voting age of Canada? Do you think that if we lower like the federal voting age to 16, as proposed by Bill C-210, this will encourage more youth to not only vote, but also be more like encouraged to be participating in the political landscape and really ensure that youth issues specifically are being pushed to the forefront of our political discussion?
So youth can be involved now. Yeah. And they are. I mean, in my campaigns, getting youth involvement as volunteers, that's a big deal, and not just during the elections, but during a period of time. I think that engagement, I think, is great, and there's room within the political parties for that. I think in all the different political parties, I know that we encourage the engagement because turning to the age of voting, 18 at this point, comes very quickly. It might seem like, it's a long ways away, but it's not. I think keeping at 18 is fine. Sure. And the reason being is because, your vote has consequences. Serious. And I know that people, and I should be able to vote. Well, it's the same thing with people going to a bar or people having a driving license, I think, or different, or being in the military. There's different ages. So, that's okay. We live with it. Those years go by pretty quickly. And I know that even in when I was a teacher, that I would kind of organize within school youth vote. So
the
basically,
local
you know,
election.
and opportunity. So to be involved in that process and understanding the issues, I think that is important, and making sure that you know, maybe invite people that are politicians, whatever, to come to the classes. So I think those are good. But yeah, you can be engaged. But I think personally that 18 years is a good age.
Cool. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Moving a little bit more onto something we found super cool about who you are is you're actually trilingual. You speak fluent French, English, and Spanish. And we also know that you're one of 12 people on the standing committee of official languages. And one of the most recent initiatives that this amazing committee of yours has done is the federal funding for minority languages post-secondary institutions, which will add $680 million over the span of 5 years to really provide quality minority language education and second language learning opportunities. And as we talked about, especially considering you have first-hand experience because you actually taught French as a teacher before, we were just wondering, how would this motion change or alter like the language education and the language learning side of education for us, the youth?
Well, good question. Okay, in how many languages do you speak?
I think we speak Chinese and English right now, but we're definitely learning French in school. Yeah.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there are about 400,000 British Columbians that have gone through French immersion. So there's a lot of people, and let alone French as a second language. So it is been a struggle. A lot of people know it, but I think using it is one thing, and that's one of the challenges, because it is, we're living in an it's English society, and maintaining your culture, your language is a big deal. Even though there's a lot of people who have gone through French immersion schools, or not French immersion, have gone through French immersion, still French as a language is probably about number 7th or 8th as far as languages spoken in British Columbia. So Mandarin is certainly higher, and Hindi and Punjabi and other languages, and Tagalog, those are languages that are spoken more. So I think it's important to, we want to, as far as the committee, try to develop or help to sustain the communities it's not just in education that you learn the language, but it's in the workplace, it's in the culturally, it's in dance, and so all those sorts of things. So how to pull it together and support. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. So my mom's side, I'm French Canadian. On my dad's side, I'm Indigenous. I'm Métis. Yeah. So, but they initially were from Quebec. My mom, and then moved to Ontario and then to Alberta. But their family was raised on a farm, and there were 16 kids. Wow. Actually, 18 kids. 16 lived. So yeah. So there was a lot, but people, they start to assimilate the small, and they go more towards the city. So I think developing helping to strengthen these communities, the Francophone community, is important.
Yeah,
it's important to me, and important for our country, because we are that is part of who we are as a nation.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
And I would say also that the fact that we have 2 official languages, and also with the First Nations, it actually was really a big deal for, I think, us as a nation being more open to the world. Yeah, and sure. It's always and multicultural. It's one of the most multicultural nations on this earth.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, just really embracing them, as you said, the multicultural diversity of Canada through languages. Yeah, that was really, really cool. Our second to last question is, if you could send a brief and short message to all young Canadians in Canada right now, what would your message be?
I would say, life is an adventure, and just to enjoy it, to enjoy the ride, and realize that but also to be to enjoy that, but it takes effort. But to do the work, whether it's in schooling or whether it's in sports or different things, to put that discipline and enjoy in enjoy the ride, even the hard times. Actually, it's the hard times, the tough times, whether it be schooling, whether it be different things or in sports, that makes you a stronger person. I think in our message is, how can I give? I think it's really important because we can be really self-focused, but really developing an attitude of how can I serve? How can I serve others in the community? How can I serve my parents? And just a humility. And I think also in general is gratefulness. I mean, gratefulness is really an important thing. Actually, a person that's grateful is a happier person. And because you're thinking every day, what am I appreciative? And expressing that to those that are around. What are ways I can express gratefulness? And getting our eyes off of ourselves. And it's not all, because when we're always focused upon our own happiness, we actually become miserable. But we're looking at serving. How can we help others? And so that aspect of gratefulness, and also self-discipline, and also watching. I think being careful. There's an ancient saying written thousands of years ago about capture the little by a king, Solomon, and he said, "Capture the little foxes before they ruin the vineyard." Ooh. So that makes sense. Like there's a vineyard beautiful, but little foxes can eat everywhere. Get them, those little foxes, because they can ruin things. So what are the little foxes in our lives that can destroy us? So I think we all have those little foxes. And just
that was really
just watching. What are some things? What are some attitudes in my life? And hearing from others and being willing to be a better person. And then as we are capturing, as we're being careful, that will help us. And you know what? Those foxes, also pleasure. I mean, it's good for pleasure is good, but it's also learning to postpone sometimes things. It can be wise. Being solid is, I'm sharing a few things. Just being willing to stand up for what you know is right. That's being willing to, you'll feel good about it. You'll feel good. I remember growing up, and my friends were, started getting into smoking and like that, and I didn't kind of go with the crowd. But I kind of felt good about it. Now smoking is frowned upon now, but in those days it was like everyone did it. Or it could be other things. It could be drugs. It could be things, and so, those are big things, and so. Those are the main things. And for me personally, this is not political. This is more my own. This is core to my own life. Is God. I'm thankful to God, to express appreciation to God, and to and try to be. It's like, there's that little thing about angel one side and devil right there. It's like. Listen to the angel right there. Just do what is right. Do what is right. In spite of the personal cost, do what is right. Walk in integrity. Be a person of integrity, in statues in the old integrity. Ancient days that you could have a statue and they could cover off the flaws by putting wax. And so, but we have waxless. To be waxless, to be a person that has integrity, honesty, watching theft. I mean, corruption in politics, that comes from a lack of integrity, and it comes from thinking of ourselves. So that looking. Service and integrity. So that's a few thoughts.
Thank you for your wise words. That was really powerful and very motivating, and just made me think a lot more about how I can really apply some of the really wise words you just said in my own life. So really thank you for that. And our final question, a fun question to end everything off, is that we know your own constituency of Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge is absolutely a nature heaven. There are so many beautiful places here, the beautiful parks, the beautiful lakes, the beautiful gardens, everything. So if someone were to visit your constituency for the very first time, what would you say are some of the must-visit spots?
Well, I'd go to Golden Ears Park.
Okay,
that's just 20 minutes from here. You'd think that you are 1,000 miles away from Vancouver area. So it's just beautiful. Or Pitt Lake is beautiful. Or a lot of the trails here. It is just a beautiful place in British Columbia. It's a beautiful place on this planet, and I know that you're living in a beautiful place too. But it's good, you come over here or take a walk along the dikes. The dikes. It's just fantastic. The scenery and
Yeah, wow. Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll definitely check it out. I'm sure the viewers who are listening to this will also, if they come over here, they'll check it out. So thank you for your insights. All right, yeah, I think that concludes our interview today. Again, Jay and I would like to extend a huge thank you to MP Dalton and his phenomenal team for this amazing opportunity, and specifically MP Dalton, who's taking the time out of his very, very, very busy schedule to be here and meet with us today. We truly, truly appreciate it. I know Jay and I definitely learned so much through just his experience in talking to you, and I'm sure the viewers did at home as well. So thank you again. For all the listeners and viewers at home, if you guys wish to see more interviews like this, be sure to tune in to future episodes. Thank you everyone, and we'll see you guys next time.